Yeah, sure. So we are Raquel and Helen from the Ecsite office, the European Network of Science Centers and Museums, and we are very honored to be your guides today from two very different Belgian locations. We are taking you through a full day of presentations and talks, bringing you the latest from the science engagement community on exhibitions and visitor experiences. So all the presenters you're hearing today answer the call we launched earlier this spring. If we set up an online stage, who had great ideas, projects, or products to share with the science engagement community. And over 20 organizations and companies took up this opportunity and purchased one of our online packages. So when we asked the audience where they were from this morning, we had viewers from Cincinnati to Amsterdam, Lisbon to Senegal, and we must now have reached much more locations as I can see the number of people in the audience keeps rising. This morning, we heard about a jungle exhibition and a modular immersive experience, which you can actually rewatch later. And this afternoon, we have 4 presentations and a Turing exhibitions marketplace lined up. Helen, perhaps you can talk us through a few more technical tips and tricks?
Sure, of course. So we have different possibilities for you to use. First of all, on the right-hand side, you'll see the chat function. You can use this to say a quick hello, interact with the speakers, or to get our attention if you need some technical support. Secondly, we have the polls just underneath. These are used during the day by our speakers and by the Ecsite team to get your feedback, so do vote. Next up, also at the bottom, we have the Ask a Question function. Please do use this to ask the speakers any questions that are relevant to their topics. You can ask a question at any time, and you can also upvote other people's questions so that the speakers know which ones to prioritize. Finally, we have the share button on the top right hand of your screens above the chat. Simply click on this button and you can share the link to the business day on social media or to friends and colleagues.
Yeah, so maybe I was just now browsing through my favorite tool, and let me tell you about it. It's our essential networking tool for today, the Ecsite app. I'm like just fascinated with it. It's the link to download it. It can be found in the button below. I just love this tool. It has like this minimal, sleek look. It focuses on the number one need of our community to build meaningful connections. You have now over 1,200 users and over 400 complete profiles, which you can browse and contact directly. You can, of course, discover our members and sponsors. We even have an impressive map with all our members' locations. We also have a feature which you won't find in any other app for the scicomm community, the meetups, and anyone with a profile in the app can create or join an existing meetup today or any other day. So check it out and get started hosting the conversations you need right now. And last but not least, if you'd like to comment on social media today, in particularly Twitter, please use Ecsite Online hashtag.
Super, thanks Raquel. I think we're good to go again. But should you experience any issues or need any more information, do get in touch via the chat at the site. Our colleague Elvira is constantly monitoring this, and she can help you there. So, about the programme this afternoon, we're now going to hear 3 fast-paced 30-minute presentations from Universcience, the Natural History Museum in London, and Créo. And then we'll take a 30-minute break. We'll be back at 3:15 Belgium time for the Corona-proofing interactive exhibits session from YIP, and then we'll have another half an hour break at 4 o'clock. At 4:30, we'll be starting a marathon of new touring exhibition sessions presentations with 18 different speakers. Afterwards, you can carry on networking and we'll tell you how.
Okay, Helen, I'll leave you to our next speaker. So goodbye for now.
Bye, Raquel. See you soon. So, on to our next session. Many have described the pandemic and the confinement as a massive experiment in behaviour change, and perhaps even a glimpse into the future. Please welcome now Hélène Wang from Universcience in Paris. Hi, Hélène. Hi, how are you today?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for asking. Okay, Hélène, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Hello, Ecsite community. I am happy to be with you today. I am Hélène Wang, Export Marketing Manager at la Cité des Sciences et de l'Industrie, Universcience in Paris. How to imagine and communicate what the future of our planet or society might look like when this future catches up with you. First, I would like to invite Mark Reed, exhibition developer from Universcience, to present the latest exhibition, Renaissance, that imagines world-changing events that lead to new horizons. Pascal Gobelot will then discuss how the scientific data is used to represent the world of 2050 in the graphic narrative experience, Data of the Future. After the quick introduction, we will discuss how these two projects were impacted and enriched by the COVID-19. If you have a question, please submit your question in the Q&A box right below. Mark and Pascal will answer your questions at the end of the session. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Helen. Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here. It's my first Ecsite, so I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited as well. I'm going to share my screen with you, so bear with me. Here we go. There we go. So I hope you can all see perfectly. I'm going to talk to you today about our new exhibition, which is called Renaissance, which opens in June 2021. Renaissance is about the futures we imagine for ourselves, our society, and for our planet. It's an exploration of how we use fiction as a tool to work through our fears about the future, and how these fears can either paralyze us or galvanize us and give us new hope. So why now? Why this subject? Well, as the depressing headlines pile up, climate change, biodiversity loss, exhaustion of natural resources, for many of us, it's getting harder and harder to imagine a positive, bright future for humanity. This anxiety about the future can become overwhelming. We all deal with it in different ways. Some of us deny that there's anything wrong. Some of us get off our backsides and decide to do something about it. So why choose fictions as vehicles for our theme? Well, the stories we tell are reflections of all these anxieties that we have about the future. We create books, films, plays to explore different scenarios, and they provoke fear or they provide comfort and hope. The point is, there's never just one definition of the future or definitive vision of the future. We all have a different one. Our exhibition uses three very different fictions in three very different formats to explore the various ways we express these feelings. You can see a plan of the exhibition there. We have a forest in the bottom, a small cinema in the top right, and just above that we have a space with lots of comfortable reclining chairs. And I'll tell you a little bit about the different fictions as we go through. The first fiction is a survival game, a narrative survival game for mobile phones, or a paper version if you don't have a phone or don't want to use it. Set in a forest where you have to test various survival skills and techniques. It's one part a sort of examination of the survivalist response to the problems of the world, to be self-sufficient, to learn to fend for yourself. Master basic survival skills, and another part about wanting to examine this desire to get back to nature and reconnect with the natural world. Our second fiction examines the phenomenon of what the French call collapseology, which is the theory of total societal collapse and its apocalyptic consequences. It's an interactive film that follows a family who are faced with some difficult moral choices on how to keep themselves safe as a civilization collapses around them. Our final fiction is a radio fiction. It's a story that the visitors will sit and listen to, which tries to offer a more hopeful vision of society. Society that's managed to pull itself back from the brink and is on the path to a more resilient future. The objective here is to offer a more optimistic vision where collective public action and political will together have created the conditions for a massive paradigm change. It's if you like, it's the yes we can moment of the exhibition. To help us to create these fictions and also to examine and to explore them, we've asked a variety of experts, historians, scientists, psychologists, sociologists, to help us decode these visions of the future and to suggest what they say about us today as a society. And finally, before the visitors leave, they can learn more about the science and social movements that have inspired the fictions and in our forum, and they can also describe or draw their own vision of the future to share with other visitors at the end of the exhibition. Well, of course, the pandemic has upended many of our assumptions about the future, not least with the timeline that we used to place each of our fictions. I'm very happy to talk to you about that a little bit more, but for now I'm going to leave the floor to Pascal, and afterwards we'll come back, both of us together, to talk to you a little bit more about how the pandemic has touched our presentations, and hopefully answer some of your questions. Thank you. I'll give the floor to Pascal.
Hi, thank you, Mark, for your explanation and your fantastic project. Hello, I'm Pascal Gobelot, producer and director at the Scalenta company. I'm director of the project called Data of the Future. It's a spectacular, immersive, widescreen project. All over the world, scientific laboratories are modeling the future. On the climate, the economy, the environment, demography, health, natural resources. In short, on all aspects of our planet and its inhabitants. They are trying to anticipate what the world will be like in 2040, 2050, and 2100 even. They built mathematical models using data collected today and measure trends to try to predict the world of tomorrow. These mathematical models in turn produce data. That means figures and numbers, which are classified in very huge and large Excel tables. For example, it could be the evolution of the population of the planet, country by country, decade by decade. Among the best known of these models, there are those whose result is seen in the famous IPCC reports on climate, which forecast global warming, it's a warning also, of 2 degrees for the end of the century. We call it somewhat provocatively data of the future. And our Data of the Future project will transform all those data into a spectacular immersive installation, video installation. Over a period of 20 to 30 minutes, Data of the Future will take place on a 180-degree panoramic screen, very large, very immersive screen. And the first showing will take place in April 2021 at the Cité des Sciences et de l'Industrie in Paris. But it's an international project which aims to circulate all over the world in the network of planetariums and with a version for virtual reality. It's a purely visual and audio show without didactic voiceover commentary. The spectator builds his own story within the graphic immersive show. This is a type of storytelling we have already experiences in a previous installation, which was called Terre Urbaine in the Cité des Sciences The show had worked very well. It was to last 6 months and it takes 2 years. He received an award in the Information is Beautiful Festival in New York. So we know that this type of innovative storytelling really meets its audience. It is based on a new technique of animated data visualization that we invented at Escalenta, which allow to transform any data into an animation variable. It can be color, speed, size, height, sound level. We can have everything controlled by data with a precision of a tenth of a pixel. And data visualization is a movement of graphic creation in full swing since 15 years. And you can see their example of it. And with this new technique we own in Escalenta, we have also created a web series, Data Science versus Fakes, 13 episodes of 2 minutes to fight fake news and misconceptions. For a museographic point of view, there are 2 things in this project. First, transform figure and data into spectacular images. It's a real aesthetic creation issue. The visual, graphic, and sound part is essential. And 2, to give the viewer the keys to understanding the major challenges of the world to come. And be careful. The data of the future are not prediction to tell us what the world will be like in 2100. They are calculations to anticipate the questions that will arise tomorrow and of which we must be aware today. And we will show how the model works for several scenarios. For example, on the climate, there are several scenarios depending on the evolution of greenhouse gas emissions. And on the world of tomorrow, we see today 2 attitudes. The first consists of an apocalyptic vision of the future. The end of the world is for tomorrow. And the second attitude is denial. We are not going to see and we do not want to know. Our data of the future project offer another attitude. That is to show citizens how the model of scientific laboratories anticipates the future and the vision is contrasted. There are a lot of problems being reported, of course, but there are also a lot of hope that can be anticipated. For instance, the life experiences, the education access, and so on. It's a test for data of the future. And it's an image, you can see the immersive dimension of the project and how the Earth will be decade by decades, country by country, from here to 2100. You can see the 2 massive blocks. They are India and China. You can see they're still the greatest countries in the world, but you can see the emergence of a new country that emerge in Africa and will be greater than United States, and it's Nigeria. Sorry for the accent. And this is the major surprise of the data of the future. Of course, we know that. Okay, I'm back with you. We know that. The African continent will really increase in the next century, but the major role of Nigeria is really the massive information that is predict now. So there is a lot of things that the project will show for the next century, and thank you for your attention, and thank you for listening to me.
So thank you for both of you for these 2 very interesting projects. I would like to first ask questions to Mark. I imagine the planning of the exhibition Renaissance had changed with the presentation June 2021. Mark, has the COVID-19 also impacted the content of the exhibition?
Yeah. like all museums, on a practical level, we've had to find creative solutions to reduce the possibility of virus transmission. In terms of reducing interactions, we're quite lucky because we'd already decided from the beginning of the project that we wanted to do an exhibition with a minimum of what we call manips. And but of course we still have touch screens and buttons within the exhibition. So I think people are going to be using their elbows quite a lot to press the buttons. We're also having to manage visitor numbers very carefully, and of course we're exploring how to maintain and improve the digital experience that's been so important during the pandemic. In terms of content, postponing the production of our audiovisuals meant that we can add references to the pandemic, and we're also going to add a short film where we ask our experts to reflect a little bit on the effect of the pandemic, hopefully with it being a bit behind us at that point, and also how they think society will respond and move forward from it. And the final thing there is that some of the content, as you may remember from my presentation, some of the content is user generated. We're asking visitors to write or draw a vision of the future, and so we're very, very interested to see what they come up with following this very strange period.
Thank you, Mark. Pascal, I have some questions from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do to warn visitors that these models are forecast and based on input data that we choose? Maybe first this question.
Of course, in the show, the show will be very clear on what the project is, and it's really to show how we can think today the future, and there will be no didactic commentary during the show, but there will short sentences that explains very clearly the every aspect of the project, and will explain what they see exactly. The show will be very clear and without any doubt for the audience.
And because you are working on contemporary data, have you seen any impacts on the development of data of the future?
Really, it's too early to tell because the crisis is really new and we're still in it, and we will see in a few months what if the models are changing, for instance, for the climate or for the economy or for population demography, etc. We will see that in few months, and I think the model will turn again in October and November. We will maybe have new data, but we don't know yet. It's too early. But I want to have a little word about the pandemic, because the pandemic had very early scientific laboratories could predict how and what will be the pandemic and how it will be grows in the world very early. And what is remarkable in this pandemic, in January, there are only few dead in China, and we begin to speak of a pandemic in one country. Measurements are in place before the epidemic because widespread, and it saved hundreds and thousands of lives. And we are able to realize the danger in the seriousness of the situation before it happened. And thanks to what? Thanks to the modeling that is done by in scientific laboratories to anticipate the future. And thanks of the data of the future, in a way.
Thank you. And scientists, you both tell us that have been found themselves at the forefront of the pandemic. How do they imagine the future of what you're telling?
I'll start. Well, in our experience, there's been kind of a reticence, in fact, on the part of the members of our scientific committees and the experts with whom we've spoken, to send the message that science and technology on their own will be able to save us. In fact, what we're trying to send as a message is that science and technology, and I think Pascal will agree with me, that science and technology give us the tools to help us to understand the world and choose the best direction to take based on the information that they give us. But the decisions about what to do with these tools and what to do with this information that science provides ultimately have to be social and political. One thing our scientists would commit to was that we'd set our fictions too far into the future. Events that we imagine being years or even in decades away with the pandemic suddenly became our everyday reality. Imagine cities without cars, skies without airplanes, massive drops in emissions. We're very curious to see how the public respond to our stories now that they've lived through this kind of potentially society-changing event. And will it motivate them to push for more radical and permanent change? Yeah, who knows?
Thank you. I think we are 1 minute. We have 1 minute left for our session. If you have more questions, we will be happy to answer your questions. Pascal, Mark, and myself. I will give our contacts in the chat box, and if you have other questions, you can ask Pascal and Mark.
But may I have just a little word?
Sure.
About what we are doing, and also Mark and myself and both projects, because scientists are working and the politics are make decisions, and the citizens have to be informed. And it's very important to inform the citizen in each country what are the scientific thoughts and models and data. And it's our role, I think, to really make a communication between all this knowledge, very difficult, and the citizens. And with images and imagination too. It's our responsibility.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Pascal, for these last words.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Hélène, Mark, and Pascal. Yeah, you can always arrange a meetup as well on the app. If you've got more to say and you really want to discuss with the audience, then feel free to put something on the app and use it, and you can create a Zoom meeting perhaps, and then you can carry on the conversation if you'd like. Good luck with the rest of the development process. See you hopefully next year for the opening of Renaissance as well. And bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.